Well, I am no longer bored. Welcome to Deep in the Stripes, the sickest Bengals podcast around. I am your host, Elise Jesse. We're talking about those contracts. We have been waiting forever for these. And you know what? We're going to talk a little bit more about the sources. We're going to talk about if you pay attention to local Cincinnati beat reporters, you were probably celebrating on Saturday instead of late Sunday night. Let's get into it.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to The Sick Podcast. Deep in the Stripes with Elise Jesse.
From 31 yards, McPherson. And Cincinnati is heading to the Super Bowl. They did it. They beat Mahomes at home. Wow, Joe Burrow. No way.
The sickest Cincinnati Bengals podcast. It's gonna be sick.
The Bengals do it. They put their money where their mouth is. You remember, I was waiting to see when this was going to happen. I was starting to feel like it was taking a little bit too long. I think because we've been talking about contract negotiations for Jamar Chase in particular since last year. So everyone's just been kind of waiting on these deals to get done. And I thought it was specifically very important for them to get these deals done as early as possible so that the rest of their roster can start to shape up for 2025. This is an important year. Wow. Mike Brown said he was going to do it. Now, you know me. I told you in the last episode, I don't put expectations on people. I believe actions over words. However, Mike Brown did back up his words, and so did Duke Tobin. So we've got to give them a little bit of credit for that. Mike Brown did say that the next guy on their priority list truly was Jamar Chase, and to make him the highest paid non-quarterback in the NFL, which they did. And also Tee Higgins. They've also mentioned, Duke Tobin in particular has mentioned how he wants Tee Higgins to be on this team in 2025 and into the future. And of course they made that happen, but we're going to talk about, because the news stream really took off. It was 10:55 on Sunday night. So you probably woke up to the news. Unless you pay attention to your Cincinnati beat reporters. I got to give a shout out James Rapine, because he had this on Saturday. He had this days before the national people had it. Okay, so if you pay attention to your local beat reporters like James Rapine, like Paul Daner, like Jay Morrison, like me, I've been in this position too, you will get the news so much earlier because your local beat reporters are closer to the sources. They're not relying on just the agents to get our information. That's not how it rolls in Cincinnati or with probably other teams locally. So yeah, if you pay attention, you were probably celebrating on Saturday with a green beer for St. Patty's Day celebrations over the weekend in Cincinnati. And then officially it became I'm not going to say it was exclusive. I don't think Jordan Schultz, nothing against him, I don't think he had any exclusive. They may have told him that, but the news was already done and out there. You know what I mean? So kudos to the local beat reporters for jumping on this. It's the contract is well worth our time to talk about. Jamar Chase, 4 years, or he's under contract for 5 more years, $161 million, 112 of that guaranteed, highest paid non-quarterback in the NFL. Way surpasses. I think Myles Garrett held that title for 5 minutes. And then Tee Higgins, 4 years, $115 million, first 2 years guaranteed, highest paid wide receiver, number 2 in the NFL. So it is looking like, are the Bengals changing their stripes, or is Joe Burrow that influential? It could be a little bit of both. Obviously, we know that Joe Burrow made a big push for this, and I think that sends a lot of different messages throughout the league and throughout his specific locker room. Joe did a ton of legwork, so I feel like Joe should be recognized in this situation because he did so much legwork during the season, in December, in Dallas, and at the Super Bowl in New Orleans. He was constantly going to bat for the Bengals to put some respect on those checks for Jamar Chase and Tee Higgins and a couple of other guys, Mike Gesicki as well, Trey Hendrickson, not done yet, but apparently they have joined the table again to talk about a contract extension with him. Rocky Arsenault to get 2 deals done. So you guys remember, like, we don't have to jump all the way into it, because if you follow the Bengals really well and you follow them all year long, you already know that Tee Higgins fired his agent and then joined Jamar Chase's agent, Rocky Arsenault. And from what I understand, they came to terms with Jamar Chase's deal, and then Rocky was like, hold up. We want to secure the deal for T before Jamar will sign. So essentially, you gotta sign T if you want to keep Jamar Chase, which was priority number 1. So that says so much to me. It's like Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, Tee Higgins. They're the 3 best friends that anyone could have. Like, Jamar Chase waiting until his best friend Tee Higgins also got a deal to sign his extension says a lot. It's impressive. It's so fun. Like, I think you could tell in watching Hard Knocks that those 3 were like, how do you make I don't know, like that? They just get along so well. Obviously, we already knew that Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase are besties and hang out outside of football, but very apparent now that it's the 3 Musketeers. The way I looked at it, like in my brain, how it worked out when everything was finalized with the Jamar and T, it felt like a game of Tetris. You know that game of Tetris where you're about to hit 4 blocks to make them disappear, and you just need that one little block to come right into the one spot that's open, the little gap there. That's how it worked out in my mind. What message does this send to the other guys in the locker room? It definitely sends a totally different message than was sent last year in 2024. We're not going to deal with a holdout, a training camp holdout this year. We are not going to deal with the drama. We are not going to deal with the distractions. I would bet money that Zach Taylor celebrated all weekend long. He doesn't have to deal with any of that crap. They can now focus on football and bettering their team for 2025. I feel like they have already taken a step towards being better in 2025 by signing these extensions, because all of that BS is in the rear view mirror now. Now they can look forward. Now they can build around the personalities of the team. They are the 3 guys that really everybody else outside of Cincinnati identifies with the Cincinnati Bengals. When you're talking about the Bengals, you don't just randomly throw out, a linebacker's name like Logan Wilson. No disrespect to him, but you're not going to automatically just talk about Logan Wilson with the Bengals. You're like, oh, Bengals Joe Burrow, Bengals Jamar Chase, Bengals Tee Higgins. It's like those 3 are the faces of this franchise right now. The cap hits will be interesting to see. I know the Bengals had, what did they pay? They paid like the 3rd highest amount of money for their defense last season. And obviously we know how that rolled. There's going to be a lot of naysayers coming at Bengals fans right now and trying to dampen the party today. Do not let that happen, Bengals fans. Don't let anybody dampen your party talking about last season. They're already better than last season because they already don't have to deal with the BS and they can move forward and focus on 2025. They do need to get much better though. Like the roster is not complete. There are a lot of holes. They do have to bolster their defense in a big way. I think they signed linebacker Oren Burks today. He's an 8-year vet. I do think if you were going to go extremely young on defense, which of course we've all talked about, they do kind of have to do, knowing how much money they'll commit to that they have signed to commit to the offensive side of the ball. I think it is important to still have those veteran presence, those veteran personalities within the locker room. Akeem Davis-Gaither was one of those guys. He is no longer with the Cincinnati Bengals, and Jermaine Pratt has said that he wants a trade. Who's going to be in that locker room with Logan Wilson? And that's going to be Oren Burks. So what I like about him is his postseason appearances. Specifically in 2024, he was with the Eagles and he made 3 starts as Philly went on to win Super Bowl 59. So I really like that because that gives him automatic respect. So if you look at it this way, if you've got a lot of young talent on the roster, and maybe coach is trying to drive home a point or explain something to another player, it helps to have a veteran with a pedigree to kind of extend that conversation, extend that point, and be another voice for the younger players outside of coach's voice. I feel like that seems to help. As far as I've covered the NFL for 13 years, so I've noticed that having a good veteran presence definitely helps the younger guys come along. This is huge. This should be like, I feel like a lot of Bengals fans will remember this weekend for a very long time because the Bengals paying the quarterback the most money in the NFL and then paying their receiver the most money the NFL has seen at that position, paying Tee Higgins in the top 10 of all wide receivers in the NFL. That is unlike them. Especially if you look at their history, that is not a common thing that we have seen. And I think that is why everyone was kind of getting just kind of like antsy and frustrated waiting for these deals to be done, because the longer it went, the longer it felt like maybe it wouldn't happen. But now everyone can just take a deep breath, take a sigh of relief. Obviously, we're jumping on this podcast today and pushing it out to the masses because it's like the official numbers have come out. But remember, your beat reporters in Cincinnati had this first, specifically Rapine. So I'm going to continue to shout him out. Rapine's wonderful, fantastic, works his tail off. So I've got to give him a shout out on this podcast as well. Again, he had that on Saturday. So when it broke, I was like, okay, like we already knew this. What do you mean an exclusive? It's not an exclusive. I don't know. I don't want to down his game, but I don't want to be jumped in a Starbucks. But if you pay attention to your local people, wasn't a big deal to you. You didn't wake up surprised this morning whatsoever. So the Bengals, gosh, you're looking at the guard position. What will they do there? They have to hit in the draft. They have 6 picks in the 2025 NFL draft. I think they do need to get those right. I've been saying this a lot this season. They need to get this draft right. They need to choose the players that will work well in this system, be effective in this system immediately. And, a few days ago, I was mentioning how they haven't necessarily hit on the offensive line. Some of y'all commented about Amarius Mims. Are you joking me? Do you think that I would just not count Amarius Mims? To me, Amarius Mims is an outlier. Okay. As far you're looking at the whole of the way they have drafted over the last almost decade, it hasn't been hit after hit after hit on the offensive line. Amarius Mims is an outlier, you guys. Thankfully, they hit on him. They need to improve the inside of their offensive line. Obviously, they need to improve on defense. You're going to hear a lot of naysayers, giving you flack today, you guys. So just be prepared for it. Get that armor on. It's not going to phase you, because this is what they're going to say. They're going to say, well, your team is going to have to score 60 points and they're still probably going to lose. Okay. Let's hold off on that criticism. Yes, last year sucked. Let's stop reminding the Bengals fans how bad it sucked. Everyone watched this offense have the most incredible, explosive, fun to watch offense in history, as far as I'm concerned. I was barely alive for the 1989, 1990 roll. So the fact that they had such an incredible run, the offense specifically, and still weren't able to make the playoffs, and their defense was obviously charged for a lot of those losses. Put it in the back of your mind. It's in the rearview mirror now. The team will look totally different in 2025, specifically on defense, than it looked in 2024. And I know I just put an expectation on this team. It's not a very high expectation. You should expect that of every team in the NFL. All 32 should look different in 2025 than how they looked in 2024. They need to get better on the defensive line. More pass rush? Yes, please. Let's see it. Obviously, Sam Hubbard retires. Trey Hendrickson deal still being negotiated at this time. They need linebackers. They need, I feel like something that they're missing. You remember back in the day, back in like 2015, that run where you had like the sleeper who was Vinny Ray. You had Reggie Nelson with 8 interceptions that year, not necessarily expecting that out of him. And then you had the enforcer, which was Vontaze Burfict. He was, without a doubt, the enforcer on Cincinnati's defense the year that they started out 8-0. Actually, I think he missed the first 6 games of that. He was still the enforcer, though, especially in the playoffs. That's the way he was. So that's what you look to him for. You look for somebody who is going to, yes, have integrity, but also take no crap in the AFC North. Got to have guys who are willing to put their bodies on the line and get the job done, whatever is being asked, and succeed where they are positioned. I think Al Golden will have a very big ploy for that. I think that he's going to do great in this position. I'm looking forward to seeing how this defense does look under Al Golden. I'm really looking forward to that. I love the fact that he is able to connect with young players. I love the fact that he is able to put guys in positions to succeed, and obviously that takes a lot of very clear communication and very clear expectations of what needs to be done and what needs to happen in order to achieve the goal that they all have, which is obviously to make a run for Super Bowl 60. This is a great day. I hope all of you are celebrating. Happy St. Paddy's Day. I'm sure most of you probably celebrated already, but here we go. Buckle up. It is time to see how the rest of this roster shakes out. What an incredible start. Now I'm like totally happy. If you can't tell, I am thrilled with the fact that we do not have to talk about this contract situation any longer. I'm thrilled that we are not going to have to wonder if we're going to see a training camp holdout. I'm not here for the drama, man. Like, keep that drama out of football. Like, I don't want to see the holdouts and the distractions and all that. No, just everybody show up for training camp, get it going, put your jersey on, eventually put your pads on, get better, and get ready. Because guess what? The slow starts, they're a step towards not dealing with another slow start to the year because their stars are signed, most of them anyways. So now they can all focus on starting the year, the 2025 season off the right way instead of behind the 8 ball and having to climb out of that hole again. Looking forward to it. I'll see you next week.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Sick Podcast Deep in the Stripes with Elise Jesse on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts.